Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Start Leading Summit. Give everyone just a second to hop on. I know we've been back to back today, so thank you all so much for sticking it out with us. I'll do some quick introductions. My name's Liz Prue. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Base, and I'll be your MC for the rest of the day. I am joined by Ian Russell, Customer Success Manager at Loom. Hey, Ian.
Hey, Liz, thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining. We've been bringing a lot of different technologies. Of course, for executive assistants, we want you to use Base. We love Base, but we use several different tools to help us be better at our jobs. And I'm really excited for you guys to learn about Loom if you don't use it. Or if you do use it, I'm sure you'll learn something new here today. For those that haven't used Loom before, Loom is video messaging for work. So combining the expressiveness of video with the convenience of messaging, it's a new and more efficient and effective way of communicating with coworkers and customers. And today, in this demo, you're going to learn how to harness the flexibility of asynchronous video to accelerate team communication and boost productivity, which is crucial now that we're still working from home. We're still racking out in our home offices and our dining rooms, and human connection. I think any opportunity that we can do that and use some pretty slick tools to do so is awesome. So I'm really excited for you guys to learn more about Loom. A couple housekeeping items. The chat is open. I'll be monitoring the chat for Q&A at the end. But while Ian walks through the product, I'm sure if he sees a question, he'll answer live too. But make sure you drop all questions and comments there. Okay, Ian, I think I'm going to toss it over to you. And if you guys need something, I'll be the lady behind the curtain as I have been today. But yeah, I'm really excited. Have fun.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Liz. I've heard amazing things about this community, so I'm really excited to introduce Loom to you guys as part of the summit. So we can kind of just dive right in on our end. Right. Perfect. So kicking things off. Super excited. Like I mentioned, we are excited to be partnering specifically with executive assistants. They have been a core component to a lot of teams that have been using Loom across our user base. So I'll dive into a little bit of that today, but this is kind of like near and dear because I've been working with a lot of executive assistants in the recent past. So this is going to be really cool to dive into. So before I even introduce myself, the team, the product, this is a one slide explainer, less so around the kind of core value that Loom brings, but more around the mechanics, like what is Loom? So if anyone's familiar, you might recognize the little image on the right-hand side of my screen here. But very simply, it's a really simple and elegant way to capture, narrate, and share video. So you can see here, my colleague has the camera bubble on, and that is a very core component to what Loom is. It's a visual video messaging platform. So she's able to record her screen simultaneously as her front-facing camera. And right now she's just walking through a presentation. And just like that, I can explain Loom in one simple image, which is really key. So that's a really kind of brief overview and primer on what Loom is before I dive into some of the mechanics of why is it actually really important? Like, what does it, in terms of value, what does that bring for you in your day-to-day work? But I'll be your guide for this afternoon. So who am I? I am Ian Russell. I help run customer success at Loom. I've been with the team for just about 3 years, and we have seen some really great and tremendous growth across the company. When I joined, we were about 8 people. We're now about 120, and we are spreading across millions of end users, which is fantastic. A little bit more about myself. I have been remote the entire time I've been with Loom, so just about 3 years fully remote. And prior to that, I was semi-remote. So if you guys have any questions about what that means in terms of work and work-life balance, I'm more than happy to dive into that. That's a really core component of Loom's DNA, is being able to work permanently remotely if you choose. But less about me and more about us. So more around the company here. 9 million users across 120,000 companies. We are spread throughout the globe, which is really, really cool in terms of being able to interact with customers and colleagues, even. We're in about 10 countries in terms of Loom mates, as we are affectionately termed ourselves. But right now, we're entirely fully remote. So, and that's a really core component to part of our cultural values. And I'm happy to be talking to you a little bit more about what that means in terms of connection and how we as a team actually leverage Loom ourselves and how our customers are leveraging it to better foster connection, not only for yourself, but more globally across the team. So there's a lot of cool opportunities to talk through today. And then a little bit more. We are going to share these videos after the chat today. So by all means, if you haven't seen this video on the left-hand side and you find Loom is something that you really want to start exploring and you want to start to convince some of your leadership team, how do I actually explain this to the team, what its value is? Joe's our CEO, and he walks through in about a minute and a half his core value and core use cases that he's bringing to the team using Loom every day, day in, day out. So really great primer. If you want to do the heavy lifting and just lean on Joe to do some of the selling internally, he is a great speaker in terms of how he leverages it, how he uses it for a remote company. And then this video is just how companies more broadly are using Loom. So how it might be beneficial to leaders inclusive. But what are we actually focusing on as a company? What does Loom solve and what are we driving towards? In a simple phrase here, we're changing workplace communication. When you think about today and how we communicate, even before digital forms, we were sending mail, we were sending forms that were asynchronous. Um, we use email today, we use Slack, we use Microsoft Teams, all forms of communication that are asynchronous in nature. What we're doing today, live synchronous, is super valuable. But there's a whole form of communication that enables our workday to be more streamlined, be more effective, that we're really fostering and helping drive for a lot of our customers. And these are going to be great resources if you want to dig into at a later stage, if you're curious about the differences between asynchronous and synchronous communication, and then where Loom can actually enhance some of that, where you can bring more personality, more of who you are and your humanity to your communication at work. And in one simple phrase, this is actually part of our brand promise and what we deliver to all users. It's a call to action internally, and what we offer on a product as a company is bringing your life to work. So when you think about an email that you're writing, when you think about all the work that you're doing day to day, how do you get that in front of the people that matter? How do you get that conveyed in a way that's really important, that's really showcasing all the work that you're doing? And Loom helps you enable that. You're able to showcase that. You're able to record your front facing camera and capture some of that. Beyond some of the work, you're actually capturing your personality, your cadence. If you talk with your hands, like I do, you can capture all of that inside of Loom and really bring some more humanity to some of the work that you're doing. So why video? We talk about that very frequently. It's pervasive, in consumer life, it's everywhere. You think about Snapchat, Instagram, even TikTok these days. Video is a pervasive form on the consumer side, but why video at work? We're always talking about Zoom and some of the value there. But we also talk about some of the hindrances there, right? Like Zoom fatigue is a real thing. Being on back-to-back calls, especially now that everyone's fully remote. How do we get around that? How do we get around that and still foster connection with our colleagues and customers? So I'll give you a little bit of scenario to frame why Loom might be really helpful. And this is actually something that I went through last week. I was speaking with a colleague that was running into an issue, just onboarding and trying to understand a piece of our product. And I went through a really convoluted um, piece where we were actually using something outside of our product in conjunction with Loom. There were a lot of moving parts. I was picturing myself writing out this long-winded message, and that was option one. How can I help this colleague so I'm not blocking them and they can successfully get to the next step of their onboarding? I could schedule a meeting was my first option, right? I could schedule some time, we could have an open conversation. I could fully unblock them and they could learn live over that time. But my day was packed. I really didn't have time to set up another meeting in my day last minute. Um, and the colleague was on the other side of the world. So how could I actually do this without, having a conversation at midnight my time, and not burning myself out to a degree? The option two was I could send detailed written instructions. I could lay everything out step by step, really cleanly, and hope that that message gets conveyed in a way that's digestible and there's not a lot of back and forth. Because if there is, we're still leaning on that time zone difference, and we still don't have that opportunity to make it as clear as possible. So you can probably see where I'm going with this. But the third option was recording a quick loop. And this was the key to solving this issue really cleanly, really effectively. In about 2 minutes, I could convey that information in a really concise and um, effective manner that was able to be digested really easily. So, as much as is it easy for myself to actually convey it, the important piece is for somebody else to actually consume it. Um, can I understand it to a degree? So, to frame this a little bit more, that exact message is what you're seeing on the left-hand side of my screen right now. There's a lot of messaging in terms of MP4 files, PCs, Macs. Like there's a lot of steps that were going on here. And imagine the sentiment or the feeling that you would have if you were starting somewhere and you were to receive this as a message, whether it's an email or in Slack, and you've got this and you're like, this is what you need to do next. It's overwhelming. It's cold. It's probably pretty confusing. It's not delineated in steps. It's just a giant block of text. It's not personal. On the flip side, this is that exact same message, the exact same content. I actually copied the transcript from that video into this page right here. But you can see here, I walked through in about a minute and 30 seconds, a really complex workflow to a colleague that was able to unblock them. They get to know me a little bit better too. You can see here, I'm still talking with my hands in both of those videos. But it's a really, really effective way to package up process, to explain things, and still foster connection, right? It's a little bit more warm. I can start my conversation with a nice little intro or some small talk, whatever it may be. It's a lot more warm of a feeling. And that's kind of what I want to lead into in terms of video here, is that effective piece. You still get that really big efficiency with Loom, but the really effective and compounding value you get is the feeling, emotion, or mood that you get from actually receiving a Loom. To frame this a little bit better, I actually was laughing at this the other day. I was talking to a colleague about the days when you would get letters and how that's kind of akin to what you would feel when you actually receive a Loom as of today. So back, 15 years ago, when letters, maybe even later than that, when letters were more common and email was just starting to come out. And you would get an email, and that was like, oh, this is really cool. I'm getting an email versus flip script today, 220 emails in an inbox. I do not want another email. And all of a sudden, you receive a letter and you open that letter up. There's something really personal about it. You can see and sense that person's handwriting. It's an extension of them, right? And it reminds you of who they are. And it's a much more unique experience, much more personal. And there's a feeling attached to it. And that's really the equivalent feeling that you get in terms of connection when you're sending a Loom. So, in a time when everything is really digital, we really need to focus and counterbalance some of that communication for being more human. You know, how can we establish the norm for making it a little bit more human, a little bit more personal in our day-to-day communication without being as cold as we are with just email or Slack messages? And video does just that. So I will pause here, and I'm actually going to jump into the product so you get a little bit more context, and I will showcase what Loom is. So as simple as it is, I can actually start recording Loom in a couple of clicks, which is really nice. So you can see here, I'm on a Mac. It works on PCs as well. We also work on iPhones and iPads, and we are coming out with an Android app as well. But the core component and the core value you see here is this camera bubble. It's going to follow me everywhere I go. Any application, it's going to overlay on my email. If I was in a spreadsheet, a presentation like I am today, you can see that this is all being overlaid right now. And from here, I have a couple options. I have the option to do screen and camera. I can do screen only. you'll see my camera bubble just kind of floats away. And then I can do camera only as well. The really cool part here is that recording your camera as well as your screen is probably the single most effective way that we see from our end in terms of stats on videos getting viewed. It's the most effective in terms of being able to capture something visual. So I can capture my presentation here, as well as my face and personality. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit start recording and show you what that experience feels like. So you can see here, I clicked once to start Loom. I clicked twice, and it's going to give me a 3, 2, 1 countdown. And just like that, I'm recording. You got a little timer here on the left-hand side, a few controls. If I wanted to start drawing, I could do that too. Maybe there was a portion of this that I really wanted to adjust. I was collaborating with Liz on this slide deck, and there's elements of this that video, just that. Maybe we can make that a little bit more pithy. Maybe we can change it up. Maybe it's a little bit too catchy. I don't know. But any way that I want to provide that feedback, I can. If I wanted to restart my recording, I fumbled over my words or something and I didn't really like what I was recording, it's as simple as just hitting that button right there. And then as soon as you're done, just go ahead and hit stop recording. This is going to be the really nice part here. So once I've done my recording, Loom is automatically transcoding that video and hosting it to a private URL. So this is a Chrome browser right now. I have a private link that I can now share this video out with absolutely anyone. If I wanted to drop this inside Slack, I can do that, and people can view that in line inside of Slack, and I'll show you what that experience looks like. If I wanted to share it in email, I can do that just as easily, or any other platform that you want to send this in. Even think Base. You can share this in Base, and I'll show you a little bit about that today too. But a little bit of context here. You can change the title. So maybe I wanted to say, hey, Liz, would love your feedback on this. And there I've got my title. I can go ahead and also hit some call to action buttons too. So if I wanted to link out to a document, if I wanted to link out to reference pages, anything as a next step for someone to take action. In this case, I might actually link to this presentation. I might say here, presentation. We'll just say that link to that. And then for the sake of this, I'll just link to loom.com. I'll go ahead and save that call to action. And at any given point inside of that video, as you play it, you can actually link out to content from your video, which is really powerful. You'll also have a live transcript. So as I kind of pointed out in my previous point there too, everything that you do record on your video is actually being transcribed automatically inside that video. So something that I like to do is search and see if I can improve my communication. And I search for ums. How many times did I actually say Twice. Did I say too many times? Only once. So that's actually okay. Not bad. And my average is way higher usually. So that's something I like to do just to coach myself in terms of how my communication is working week over week in terms of how I can actually do that. It's a really cool feature for coaching yourself or for others coaching you and getting you feedback, which is really cool. So what does this actually look like when you share it? I'm going to show what that looks like inside of an email, and then I'll show what this looks like inside of Slack as well. So I'm going to jump over to my email. I'm going to bring that over here. And as soon as I've got that, I can say, hi, Liz. Would love your feedback on this presentation. And then all I'm going to do is hit copy and paste. You can see here, here's a full link to that actual video. Liz can go ahead and click on that as soon as I send that off to her and watch that video and see in real time what that actual feedback was that I was requesting, what those thoughts were. It might be really hard to communicate that over just a simple email. So there's a lot more value in the visual component to actually doing this inside of Loom. So as simple as that, you can record and share in a matter of 2 to 3 clicks. So it's a really quick high high level of efficiency and low friction process for communicating something that's visual in nature. Just going to jump back to presentation here. And now that you've kind of had a sense of what that core recording experience looks like, I wanted to share a little bit more about how people are actually using it out in the wild. And this was actually a really interesting thread that happened more recently, tail end of last year, where people were just sourcing ideas on how Loom was actually being used. I saw in the comments someone was saying, really great idea for testimonials, fantastic use case. There's all kinds of use cases that are going to crop up in terms of this. It's not limited to just a specific department or a specific persona. Anyone that needs to communicate visually or just wants to enhance their communication can actually use this. Engineers were using this for code commits, code reviews, things that are complex in nature and wanted to share internally with their engineering teams. User researchers using this to communicate with customers and source written feedback in a more conversational tone. There's all kinds of really cool ways that they're using it. On the flip side, this was really, really interesting. And what we see happen that bridges the gap between like the personal world and the professional world, which is using Loom as a core means of communication. So in this case, someone said, loomed my feelings to a relative, not on speaking terms, allowed for a beautiful expression and response. It's really powerful. Recorded my thoughts the day before surgery as a way to say, I love you. Some really interesting ways that you can start to see that Loom isn't just kind of a corporate tool that you can use. You can blur the lines between personal and work and use it as a means of just kind of communicating your true self, which is really cool. Other pieces of this, which speak to the human element of it, is the way people are actually feeling when they communicate with Loom. And maybe submitting a ticket to a support team, right? Rather than just being another ticket or another number, letting them empathize with you as a person that's struggling. How can you convey that in just a simple message? With Loom, you can actually add that empathy to that message. This was great and really cool to see. Alexis Ohanian, who's the founder of Reddit, is becoming a fan of Loom. And one key thing too, when we think about efficiency and streamlining workflows, when you think about a meeting, you can't necessarily speed that up. With Loom, if I package up a message, send that off to someone, the benefit becomes they can watch that on their own time. So whatever's easiest for them, but they can also watch it at 2x speed. So for people, my cadence kind of varies sometimes, but sometimes I'm walking through something really slow. I'm like, please watch my video at 2x speed because I rambled on. There's a lot of value in that in terms of efficiency. So imagine being able to speed up meetings 2x. That'd be a life changer. Tax returns. Accountants love using Loom. So anything that you can think of, there's all kinds of various use cases that teams are leveraging from this. And then going back to the leadership perspective, if you're thinking about your leaders and you're supporting your leaders day in, day out, this was a really powerful way for them to connect more broadly with their team and use time really valuably across their team. So being able to send an onboarding video to the entire company. This is the VP of Community and Belonging at Brandwatch, shared a full 15-minute video in clips, detailing her career, detailing parts of her life and what she was going to bring to the table for the team. And it led to uh, tons of different conversations across the team, opened up new opportunities for connection. So there's lots of ways you can do this without being in the office 24/7. So thinking about this more critically from like a perspective of Loom at work, like how does Loom be leveraged on a more kind of day-to-day basis for individuals, whether it's EAs, leaders, people like myself who are in customer success. This is a quote I love because it details not only the pain point, but how much people leaders are wanting to be able to connect with employees. But in terms of limitations, when you think about a leader's schedule, And you guys probably know in terms of managing those schedules, it's hard and trying to carve out time for making some of those personal connections is really difficult. Katie Burke loves Loom, and she leverages it in a way to scale herself without having the need to have 75 personal one-on-one calls. She can send really quick messages and capture those on a time efficiency scale that's a little bit easier for her to manage. So this is a really cool way to look at it from the cost savings that it would have in terms of time for leaders. Company announcements. So this is actually what it looks like inside Slack. You can actually drop a Loom link inside of Slack and have that play in line. So you'd have to go to a Loom landing page to watch a video. You can just watch it wherever you're currently working, if that's inside Slack. Megna, who's our VP of People, had a huge call to action to clean up our Notion, which is our internal wiki system. Got a little bit unruly, so there was some clear things that we wanted to walk through. This was no meeting involved, a simple Loom that spanned tons of different time zones, and people were able to work at this on their own time. So imagine the efficiencies across 120 people for our organization versus having an all hands to be able to walk through this. Team updates. So my VP sends out weekly messages to the team for alignment. This is really, really valuable for meetings. We all have an all hands meeting for our specific team later in the week, but the real value here comes from I know what Sam is asking for at the beginning of the week. He has his full team aligned. He's outlined what the specific milestones we want to hit, what are the focus areas, and in this case, which was really nice too, early on this week, it was International Women's Day, and he was able to give great shout outs to each of our individual teammates who were women on the team. And everyone was able to watch that and kind of sing some of the praise of some of those teammates, which was amazing. So there's all kinds of compounding benefits you can see from not just team updates, but how can I make it a little bit more personal for my employees. Onboarding, a really big thing for teams as they grow, documenting processes without having to have people on a call constantly. Think about just recording a simple video. Ali, our customer marketing manager, recorded a 2-minute video that introduces Loom to all of our customers. We don't have to handhold onboarding. We can send this out, and we can do this internally for teammates as well. If they're just being introduced to the product, to processes, to how the company works both ways. Document and systematize with Loom. It's a really powerful mechanism. Cross-functional collaboration. I had a peek at some of the sessions earlier today, and I heard this come up a couple times. Think about how cross-functional you are as an EA, or some of the leaders might be as well too. If you're able to package up some information prior to a meeting, or even reduce a meeting entirely, if I'm able to send this in advance and get feedback, maybe I've reduced that meeting, or maybe I've just made that meeting much more valuable because everyone's aligned prior to actually going into that meeting. So really cool use case, really transformative for our team personally. Feature releases. So as products evolve, as processes evolve, you got to inform your team, you got to inform your clients. Our product manager has done that just in this case, where this will get sent out to all of the customer facing teams. So everyone's aligned. He doesn't need to have a meeting with us to showcase that. And it's really, really simple. This is a 2-minute video explaining how it works. And this one's probably pretty cool too. I haven't experienced it myself, but there's all kinds of ways when you start thinking about this to leverage it inside of existing platforms. So within Base, when you're going through requests for leaders, right? If there's something that's contextual, if there's something that needs a little bit more information that warrants a video, you can actually attach that and then send that in Slack, or send it afterwards in Slack and just give them a little bit more feedback around what that specific request is. So all different kinds of ways that you can start to leverage Loom at work. One of the important pieces that I wanted to distinguish here was around fostering connections, and the value that that actually delivers for yourself as well as your colleagues, especially given our current state. Everyone's either moved to a work from home state or in a hybrid remote state. Don't really know when people will go back to the office. there's a lot of value in exploring ways that you can have those connections more broadly, um, and having fun with Loom too. A lot of our customers are starting to explore it, but I want to give you a little bit of a glimpse inside of some of the culture at Loom and ways in which we use it and ways in which we encourage a lot of our customers to use it. This is actually our VP of engineering, Jude, and a senior engineer on our team who are both really talented musicians and recorded a few songs asynchronously, believe it or not. So Jude would record something, send that video to Harsh, and Harsh would record on top of it and create a really amazing song together. They dubbed themselves, I think it was Async, as a ode to NSYNC. But yeah, I really love that part. Um, this is Britt, who is our team lead on design. And we were releasing, just as I mentioned before, we went through that transcription page where you can see the live transcript of your videos. Had a fun feature release for the team, showing you what was actually behind all of the functionality, which is this cute, adorable little puppy behind the scenes. And then there's all kinds of fun things, right? This was our senior brand manager, and just having some fun dancing. Our team kind of took hold of this and created more looms on top of it. And it just created this whole chain of different looms. I won't show you today, but this is just kind of a tiny glimpse into what's happening. But having some of this is really cool. And then the last couple here, building connections around, personal environments. George was showing us his garden. He's almost a professional gardener here, so there's all kinds of cool glimpses into the humanity of your colleagues, right? Who they are outside of work. And then lastly here, wanted to showcase something that I think is probably one of the most warranted, and I would challenge everyone here to actually do this, is sending praise to colleagues. It's a fantastic way to give congratulations. Vinay, who's our CTO, and Paulius, who's a senior engineering manager, recorded a message sent to the team for Steve, who had just celebrated a year milestone at Loom, as a way of congratulating and then sharing that milestone with the team. Is a really kind of fun, personal way rather than just sending a message. You can see they're having a good laugh here too. So I know there's a message there to get into Q&A. Wanted to kind of pause there and we'll jump into that, but happy to answer any questions here and dive right into more about Loom.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. I learned a ton. I think I've told you this, I'm obsessed with your branding. I think it just all around A+, Ian. Loved it.
I hope the brand team's proud. I'm stealing their work.
Well, they better be. Okay, so I have a ton of questions from you guys that I've been collecting, so we'll just kind of run through them all. I know we had a big chunk of you join a little bit into it. So we'll just kind of ping Ian here. First up, can you save and replay looms for future reference?
Yes, great question. So all looms that you do record will automatically be saved. So they get saved to a personal library that you can always send and replay. So they're indefinitely saved, but that's a great question. And that's how teams are creating libraries of content for onboarding. So you can picture creating a video for a process and then having that live indefinitely in a wiki or somewhere. But they're different from what you might think of like a consumer version of like Snapchat, which would disappear. Loom links live on until you explicitly delete them.
That's awesome, especially for onboarding versus a Google Doc, which are great, but I mean, you kind of get over it when you're doing something like onboarding.
Yeah.
Next up, can you embed a Loom into a presentation like PowerPoint?
Great question. So I was actually using, in my presentation there, I used a platform called Pitch. It's pitch.io if anyone is curious. Great platform. And that integrates directly with Loom. So you can embed Looms inside of the platform. The component with PowerPoint you can't embed specifically. But what we found works really well is people actually will record on top of PowerPoint presentations and then send that Loom video in an email or in a Slack message. So you've got the presentation of you walking through it, and then send the presentation separately.
Another great question. This one, it kind of made me laugh a little bit because it's also real. Is there a recommended length for a video time, or are there time constraints for recommended length? Because some people just like to talk.
That's a great question. We have so on the free version, and just a note, Loom is entirely free, so feel free to sign up and give it a shot. It is constricted to a timeline of 5 minutes. So in certain cases, it's actually beneficial. We've had people give us feedback where it's like, oh, this has actually made me limit myself without having to record a 15-minute video. But beyond that, if you do opt for the paid plan, that's unlimited. So you
Awesome. We had someone else ask, can you show how it works in an email?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to bring my screen up again here. Awesome. So this is that video that I was demonstrating earlier. So anytime you do create content, just to tie this back, there are a few libraries that you have access to that you can then reference your videos in. So all content gets automatically recorded into your personal library. And if you want to share it, then you can share it out more broadly, like the team or specific individuals. But if I am sharing this inside of an email, what you're going to want to do, depending on your platform, if you're in Gmail, it'll actually automatically expand, which is great. I don't use Gmail myself. So if you're in Outlook or any other platform, what you'll want to do is go to linked GIF under share and just hit copy thumbnail. That's going to ensure that you're having that thumbnail that you can actually then just jump over to your email when you hit compose, and then just hit copy and paste. And that's going to automatically appear inside of your email.
Awesome. That's great. I recently too, for those watching, we've here at Base, we've been hiring and interviewing, and proactively, and also us asking, but then even when we haven't asked, folks have sent over responses to any interview follow-up questions we've had via Loom, which has been really helpful. And it's also been super helpful for Paige, our CEO's executive assistant, who's been very graciously managing a lot of that for us. And I know that's been incredibly helpful for her.
Amazing. Yeah, there's so much value in when the real compounding value starts to happen when you start to use it. But when you find more and more people inside your organization use this as a default form of communication, that's when you're going to start to see a lot of behavior change and where you get real value. Because Loom's great because you can package up information and send it, but you get a lot of value from receiving them too. So the more you have in terms of people on your team that are starting to adopt it, the more value you're going to start to see.
That behavior change is huge. For libraries, someone asked, you can have a shared one with, say, the rest of the EAs in your company as a group repository.
Yeah, it's a great point. So you can actually, inside of Loom, create a workspace where you invite teammates. So if you had a bunch of EAs as part of that workspace, you can invite them all, and they can all collectively reference those, whether it's onboarding videos, process videos, videos for specific executives. You can all collectively share that content.
Awesome, thanks. And I know we have some folks have asked this too. What differentiates Loom from any other video tool? I know you walked a lot through this throughout your presentation, but just quick hits as to why you would use Loom over any other video tool to do things like onboarding or the other use cases you mentioned.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind too when you're thinking about video tools is what your end goal is. There's a lot of really fantastic tooling out there if you're trying to create, a really powerful marketing video. Loom's not going to be the tool for you if you want to create like a really polished video that sits on your marketing landing page that everyone watches in terms of onboarding to your product. But if you want something that scales, that you can record very quickly and very easily, you can see kind of as I went through the demo, it was about 2 clicks and I could record. It can be very transactional and very quick in nature. So if you're looking for something that's efficient, if you're looking for something that's very fast, Loom is going to deliver on that. So if you're a fast moving team, if you got to juggle a lot of things, if you don't want video editing to be kind of your full-time job, you just want it to be an extension of like, I want to make this piece of communication a little bit better. Loom just fits into that really nicely. So it's great. If you're not comfortable with video, it's a really easy step into it. And it's really fantastic if you just want something fast and simple and effective.
That's a great point. And the time, my brain is blanking. The speed up option too. I am embarrassingly did not like even think to do that until like a week ago. So terrible. I was like, this is saving even more time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's what we joke about too, is just like, if we could honestly do this in meetings, what the world would change drastically.
Oh my
But yeah,
gosh.
that's a big feature a lot of people are really liking.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, I know there's a bit of a lag on Facebook, so we'll give you guys just another minute to drop in any other questions that you may have. I know we probably have time for just like one more, but while the chat catches up, is there anything else, Ian, that you wanted to share with the group? I am going to share those resources that you provided, so I'll put that in the chat as well. Let me go ahead and drop those in for you guys. Okay.
Yeah. The one thing I would say too, as you're getting started, is if you're looking to explore Loom and want to test it out, like I mentioned, Loom's a free product, so you can get started pretty easily. It can be kind of like a foreign process to start, right? Like a lot of people have aversion to hearing their voice or being on camera. And that's totally okay. It's really natural process. We work with a lot of our clients to coach them through that process. And it's just a little bit of a barrier at first, but you start to get used to it because it's a brand new muscle. It's when you think about recording in that manner versus sending an email is second nature because we all do it. It's just part of our day. It's like what we do every single day. Recording yourself on video. If you think back to I like to think about this. If you think back to the very first voicemail you ever recorded, it's kind of like that. You start to fumble through it. You're like, I don't know what to say. Like, all that turned out awful. It was just really bad. But part of what makes Loom really unique is, and effective to a degree, is making it a little bit more human. So when you don't have it scripted, when you don't have it rehearsed, sometimes those ums and ahs are actually really nice. It makes it a little bit more genuine and conversational versus here I am just reading a bunch of lines and sounding robotic. So the more you can concentrate on just kind of relaxing as you're doing it, making it a little bit more conversational and not worrying about it being really, really polished, the better they're going to be and the more genuine they're going to sound.
Awesome. Well, those are great tips. Thank you so much for joining today. I know everyone was super pumped about this, and personally, I learned a ton. I know our team on Slack are like, this was amazing. So this was just super great. Ian, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Liz. I really appreciate today and excited to be a partner here. So if anyone wants to reach out, by all means, I'm Ian at Loom. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to help out where everyone wants it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys, and have a good rest of your day. We'll see you soon.